And welcome back to This is Dunder Moose. Who is Dunder Moose? I am your host, Dunder Moose, and I am rejoined. I think you may be my first return guest, actually, Winston.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Brown Wizard Winston is back in the house, and we are pleased to bring you DM Blackwall, one of the co-authors of Horde Wars Basic. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Same.
It's good to be with you guys. It's good to have everyone in the chat. I'm wearing my ridiculous hat because today at work an air handler went down and we had no heat, so it was like stinking cold. So if I start sneezing or whatever, I'm just gonna mute myself.
Not again.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm here, Henry. I see you in the chat. I'm not sure what you're going on about Borat, but I'm glad to see you again, bro. I am following my own advice. I got The Face in the Frost. I'm about halfway through from the Appendix N read through, and Wednesday was leg day, so stairs are not my friend right now. But enough about the Broasar. We're here to talk about Horde Wars Basic. So. DM Blackwall, if you want to just give us like the back of the dust jacket, what is Horde Wars?
Oh, sure. So Horde Wars Basic is the first book in a game system that Nathan, Lindy, and I have been working on and have begun to release. Horde Wars Basic itself is a complete role-playing game, but it's focused around low-level play, so it's just levels 1 through 4. Horde Wars Advanced will include levels 1 through 12 and should be out in a little under a year.
Okay.
But it is a D12 based tactical RPG that has turns that move quickly and in which you are constantly at risk of death.
Yes.
Well, I like the sound of that. Nothing like keeping people right on the edge of their seat. When did you come out with this?
So Horde Wars Basic got released in September.
Okay.
And we spent about half a decade working on it and got over 1,000 hours of playtesting done with, I think, over 100 different playtesters.
Wow. Okay.
Like
so
really
how did
worked
you
on it?
So it's not like a just recently type thing. What was the seed of the idea for it? Like when you started off? 5 years ago, that cuts down on it a bit, but there are a lot of games out there right now, right? Like if you look at the OSR, all of the retro clones, if you look at like some of the newer story game stuff, so kind of a crowded market, but like you must have had an idea that like lit your minds on fire. Can you take us to that moment?
Well, sure. Basically, Nate and I both had been longtime role players. I focused mostly on West End game stuff and D&D, mostly 3rd edition, though I learned on 2nd edition. I also played 5th. And our play group wanted to play 5th edition, so we did that for a while. Oh, and Nate, by the way, actually worked as a Paizo rep for a while.
Oh,
and
nice.
He's played, I think, like 30 different systems, full campaigns.
Dang.
Like he is well versed. Anyway, so we were running multiple campaigns, and we both were running into problems with 5th edition D&D, which our play group wanted to try out, and we did for a few years. And basically, 5th edition was slower in turn order than we would have preferred. You were kind of waiting a long time for your turn.
Yep.
And it failed to deliver on its promise with those backgrounds. Basically, a veteran soldier meant that other veterans might like you a little better. It didn't mean you were actually good in combat. It
didn't give you a bonus as far as like how many people you could lead or
right.
It
was just so that wasn't fun. And so we found a number of ways to hack the game to make it more interesting. And Nate and I began writing a sci-fi game, which we are also working on. It uses the same game engine as Horde Wars.
Okay.
For like character creation and that kind of thing. But I actually wound up writing almost half of Horde Wars Basic in a weekend.
Wow. So you just got inspired and were like,
Yeah, basically, we were
Fell
working
through
on
the
our
page.
sci-fi game. We have a pretty robust space combat system done for it, and we were
Mhm.
trying to work on the player progression stuff. And while Nate was out of town one week, I just sat down and wrote out a whole fantasy version, and then we did. And when we play tested it, and our play testers liked it really well, so, and
Mhm.
they keep going down that. So we set aside the sci-fi game for now and worked on producing that. So we've got multiple, artists hired. We've got an editor, and
Yeah. Well,
it's
and
good.
that's why I wanted to show that. Oops, I didn't mean to. I'm still learning this software, guys. Sorry. The art for Horde Wars Basic is amazing. Like just the
Oh,
the
thanks.
green glow and the skeletons and the knight up there with the bucket helmet. Just
Yeah. So
King
the
of the
basic
Mountain.
expert, or Jonathan Torres, he did the cover art both for Horde Wars Basic and Horde Wars Advanced.
Wow,
Fantastic.
nice.
And then we got another artist named Simeon Cochran who did all of the interior artwork for Horde Wars Basic, except for the map. That's another one by Jonathan Torres. And
Brilliant.
then Advanced, we're going to have I think 4 artists in there, including still those 2, but a lady named Jessie Heglin, and then I think one or 2 other guys, depending on when I get their material.
Right on. So Winston has actually played this game with you.
Yes.
And so
Twice.
my question is for both of y'all then, as you've been playing it, like what is the difference between what did you do to solve the pacing problem of 5e combat? And what have you noticed, Winston, as you've been playing as far as how long a turn takes and what decisions you have to make and stuff?
It's similar to stuff that you've probably played, but cranked up to 11. So I did a review on the game after I played my first session, including a play report. It's on my blog.
Yeah.
But essentially, you just hit more and you do more damage, and that's counteracted by more enemies and stronger enemies. So as you're playing through, and you get into an encounter, you have a dozen or so enemies and stuff, and every turn you're deleting. You're going to delete something off the board, and so that's constantly changing. But you have to work really closely with your teammates because some of them won't be able to take a hit or 2, depending on what you're fighting as well. They won't even be able to take 1 hit unless they get dropped. So that's where the extreme tactics comes in, because a slip could just do it, and change everything. So
Sure.
It's phenomenal.
Sure. You guys played a game, I think, where you fought something like 30 zombies with was it a 3-man party?
It was a 3-man party. It was 17 zombies, and we had effectively 2 in-game turns until the second wave showed up out of the mines, and it was just as many with a mini boss with it as well.
Oh yeah, no, I was adding up the 2 waves.
Yes, it was back to back, no preve, no real time to do much.
So what did 5e get wrong that this fixes? Is it the initiative system, or is it the amount of things you can do on your turn?
So the initiative system is different. Basically what happens is when combat begins, everybody rolls for turn order, and you're rolling a d12. It's a d12 based game, and you're adding your character's reflexes bonus, if any.
Okay.
The game master is adding the highest reflexes bonus among the enemies to his roll. And then high roll wins. High roll is the beginning of is first in turn order, and then you go around the table after that. The other numbers do not matter.
Okay.
And the reason for this
is high roll by side or high roll by individual?
High roll. No, it's not side based. This is individual initiative. And so, but the winner is top of turn order, and then you just keep going around clockwise around the table or around your list on an online game service. And anyway, this speeds up turn order because everybody knows who's next.
Yeah. You don't have to write down all the names in the initiative order and then keep a marker and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And our game system also has something called maneuvers. They're like reactions, but you can only take 1 per round. Often, though, you can use it to deal extra damage on an attack, or to block an incoming attack, or to cast certain spells. And so it incentivizes the players, even when it isn't their turn, to pay attention, because there's often something they can do.
Yeah. I tend to liken those to the bonus actions from 5e, except for they're actually utilized and useful for like everyone.
Got it. Henry says this game even uses the seating arrangement for strategy. So Henry, yes. do you choose when you know you're playing Horde Wars? Are you like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit. I know Winston's got high reflexes, so I'm gonna sit to his left.
Oh no, I've seen players do it. In fact, I've experimented with having a guest player come in to play a villain and having him sit in the middle of them.
That's awesome.
And they will rearrange their seating.
That's fantastic.
You get up to get a coffee and you come back and someone's taking your chair. Hey.
Yep. No, we knew we had a good system when the players started physically rearranging themselves to manipulate it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. Well, and you're hitting the muscle memory from a ton of board games. Everyone understands that. Okay, it's your turn, and then we go around.
Exactly,
okay,
and that
I can see how that would speed things up for sure.
Yep, and then we also do things with spells, for example. So, Winston, do you remember what we did with like lightning bolt or fireball that's different from D&D or Pathfinder?
There's a couple things. You know exactly what you have, how much you have, range and stuff. The big thing that I know you pointed out before is that if you're familiar with that spell and an enemy is of the same class, you know what they have too. So you have enemy intel.
Right. Right. But also, so for example, if you're playing, so in our game, you get 2 careers. You kind of build your own custom class by combining 2 of 21 possible careers. And then you also get to pick your species from the starting 5 available species. And anyway, so if you are, say, a red wizard, you know some of the spells all red wizards know. And so if you meet a red wizard in the game world, you have a little bit of information about him. But as it relates to turn order and speed in combat, all of our damaging spells, with the exception of like a wall or barrier type effect, but all the like fireballs, lightning bolts, that kind of thing, are attack spells. You roll an attack, which means 1, you can score a critical hit. And in our game, a natural 12 is a critical hit. Okay. Sometimes a natural 11 is. And so we do double damage on a crit, which means fireball or lightning bolt or those sorts of spells can have a higher chance of killing opponents. Or of killing you if they crit on you, if an enemy caster does.
Yeah.
How fast is character creation?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay.
I can do it faster.
D&D first edition.
Yeah, I can do it faster, obviously, but you can see examples on YouTube. Terminal Goblin Games did one. I did one with Ryan Howard, where he built one live 5 minutes after he bought the book.
That's awesome.
Joe and Randy from Big Geek Emporium just did one live. They took longer, but that's because they decided to roll randomly for everything, and we're trying to coordinate together. So they took about 30 minutes.
Okay.
But if they had just decided, it would have been faster.
So fast combat and fast into the action. Like you show up on game night, even if I've never played.
Yeah.
I get some dice. I can get up to speed. Ultra American says, I'm an absolute fan of my Orc Crusader I made for the game, for the creator.
That's awesome.
Henry says, my Orc Blade Master Tavern Wench Fazoli is the best. So it sounds like people are like connecting with these creations as well. Like it sounds like you quickly generate something that people enjoy playing.
Well, it helps that these all these careers are focused around doing something specific and doing it well. And so a blade master is really good with particularly swords, but melee weapons in general. He can swing them faster. He can make, extra attacks, or he can block an incoming attack with a weapon in hand. Our tavern wench is really good at flirting and luring people into dark alleys.
I picture a tavern wench orc that's good at flirting, and it's just not fitting in my head right now.
Oh yeah. You don't have to because we have it texted, so you can use other weapons, of course.
He's going unarmed with his character. And,
that's perfect.
We reflavored the tavern wench as a bouncer.
Yep.
It really just renamed it. Everything else is the same. He's in the orc mob.
That's perfect.
He's been watching a lot of
wants you to get in the coach.
So he uses unarmed, and he uses a signet ring to modify his damage.
Oh, good. You caught that. Yeah, we hid some Easter eggs for the people who pay attention to the rules. Signet rings actually help you do extra damage with your fists.
That's like a deep cut back to the original Phantom comic strips, right? Did you guys know about those?
No. I was just
familiar with the movie.
We've done other stuff too. Has your party noticed the whetstones yet?
No, they haven't. Which I'm surprised because one of my players has been he was my rules lawyer for the game, and just like, looking at everything just because this is the first time I've run it, so we're playing and it's like, what is this again? And he's just like, he just has it. He just on top of it. But yeah, no one's caught it yet.
Sounds like that signet ring and the tavern wench just go hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
What tavern wench doesn't love jewelry, right? Man.
And then in the basic book, you do get a starting town, a example adventure to play through. You also get essentially the minimum amount required for the game master to run 12 additional adventures in the book. So the first one's written out step by step, kind of walking you through. The others are the cliff notes you need to run the session. So
you've got the book not only has the rules to run it, but you've got adventures already published.
Correct.
So
and precons. So there's 7 pre-built characters you can just grab and play.
Yep.
Cool.
Now, I will note that you should do that for a one-shot, but in the long run, you should build your own, because in the game system we've designed with 21 careers, just off the careers alone, that's 400 possible combinations. You will not run out of content to try.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, not only that, but just like the leveling, the pacing of that, even the basic edition will stretch you out for months, depending on how frequently you can meet up, because it's XP per adventure rather than anything else.
Okay. So you do not have a GP for XP mechanic. It is
we do in advanced, although it's not the gold. It's actually recovering artifacts from monsters.
That's cool.
So it's a variant of XP where you can choose, instead of the normal leveling up system, which is for completing adventures, and you get XP based on how hard or how successful it was. But the variant one, which will be in advanced, is you essentially get XP for each artifact you liberate from monsters, and you get twice as much XP if you turn it over to a patron instead of keeping it for yourself.
I really like that. I'll be running that.
it gives you a meaningful choice. Like, do I want to turn this over and get more powerful,
and
or do I want
incentive
use the power of the artifact?
Right.
And so those artifacts are awesome. There's a bunch of them, and they're a mix of like, these are cool, I can see how these can be utilized, but they're also very flavorful. Like, I just was writing in a small adventure just the other day based around one such artifact, because it was just like, this is cool, and this will be incentive for the players to check this out.
Right on. Well, so Winston writes adventures.
I do that.
Are you working on any adventures for Horde Wars?
I am.
Okay, and you're open to that, Blackwall, like third party?
We're actually depending on how well things go. If advanced breaks even or makes money, either of those outcomes, we are considering doing an anthology of adventures other people have written for our game system. Now there would be some formatting requirements.
Oh man!
But,
so are you gonna like open it to submissions, or are you gonna like tap certain people for?
I actually have a few guys who have mentioned an interest in doing it. A couple are already working on it, and if Winston's interested in it, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
So
but
your
as far
inbox
as
is gonna get pretty full, I bet.
oh no, I think it'd be great because people will come up with cool adventures that Nate and I could never think of, and so that's a good thing for adventure writing.
Well, and it sounds like the artifacts are already getting the juices flowing, right?
I hope so.
Well, there's tons of stuff in there, not just the artifacts. Just the whole book is littered with like I call them like sort of Easter eggs because you don't have the full picture of the world or the setting and how everything works, but there's little snippets here and there, and so you get those things like, oh, this idea right here is just very cool. Like, the orcs being stand-ins for like Vikings and stuff. Like so much you can do with that. Like, just
do you
the
want
idea by itself.
Without giving too much away, do you want to give us like a little teaser or some of the ideas you're having?
Yeah. So okay. Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot. Like if you're like, nope,
no, it's fine.
To the vest.
Yeah, I can give you a little something. I kind of talking about it on Twitter a bit the past couple of weeks too. But it's going to be like desert themed. So a lot of desert stuff mixed with like plains. So there's encounter tables and there's different biomes. So I like desert stuff, doing desert. Now, one of the dynamics you have in the game is you have a race of dragon people called Dracarans, and they conquered the halfling nation and enslaved them. So they've enslaved like, a great deal of the halflings. And so I've worked that into this sort of, it's kind of a quasi keep on the borderlands in the desert with
nice
dragon people and halfling slaves.
That sounds amazing. Says, if you travel by ship, hug the coast.
He is not wrong.
Okay. He's not wrong.
You guys got to fill me in on that
one. I'll save it for the story at the end.
Okay. All right.
But suffice it to say, we've been so advanced should include some of the more kind of boutique chapters. So, for example, we have a chapter for ruling your own domain, right?
Oh, nice.
Or we have a chapter for nautical adventures. Now, we have a little bit of that information in basic, where you could like hire some mercenaries to work for you and that kind of thing. But building a keep or a town or whatever, no, that has its own chapter in advanced.
What about mass combat?
Oh yeah. No, we have a mass combat system. It's I managed to fit it in one page.
Nice. One page of advanced or one page of basic?
One page in advanced. But there's a mass combat system if you want to be controlling armies or fighting in an army. And the Horde Wars name is named that way though because it's intended for the players to do mass combat at their own scale, where you're fighting 20 or 30 enemies or 40 or more. Not every single game. Sometimes you'll fight a solo boss or whatever, but where that's actually possible, fun, and is happening in a prompt manner, where you are not wasting a bunch of time waiting for your turn.
I gotta tell you, man, when you're doing 5e combat and you're doing your best as the DM to keep up with it, and then you look up and you see one of your players is on their phone, and it's just like, I've lost them. That is such a bad feeling. So I think I really appreciate that you specifically focused on exciting, well-paced combat. I think that's part of the secret sauce that you really need these days to stand out.
Nice.
So you are on Big Geek Emporium. Are you on any other?
So Big Geek Emporium currently we are selling Horde Wars Basic on for $5 for the PDF. Okay. When we release Advanced, that will go up to $10 on other sites.
Okay.
Currently, it's $5 only on Big Geek Emporium, but we also have physical product. So
Big Geek is the exclusive for the digital, and it's half price right now.
Correct.
And I'm just going to throw that banner up there again. Thanks. Here's
how
you get to it.
Yep. And we also have physical products. So that's that email I shared with you earlier in the private chat. They can email us and let us know what they want to order. But basically, we've got soft covers for $25. And then we have a limited supply of spiral bound plastic covers, which will lay flat. So they're better for a game master for $35. And then it's just paying US shipping, which is $10 to $20 to ship 1 or 2 books at a time. That's just US postal rates, really depending on where you live. So, for example, given what I've learned about where you live, it'd probably be like $10 for you.
Yeah.
But the guy who ordered one in Alaska, well,
yeah,
more.
Rough stuff.
More. Do you have it digital, Winston?
Yeah, just digital. I think once I get some more scratch, I'll probably so I've got the PDF pulled up, but I think having a physical book would just be so much better.
Sounds like the spiral bound is like the Cadillac experience where you can lay it flat and stuff. Cool.
Yeah, I think it works better for that. And then we did do, just for proof of concept, we did a very limited supply of hardcovers. We're not selling those. We did give some away, mostly because I wanted to test it out for when we release Advanced, what some of our printing options are.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think it was Victor Gorchev or maybe the Basic Expert were talking about like the leap in complexity that going to hardcover entails.
Yeah, it took me a little bit, especially since for Basic I had to do the layout. We have a person, possibly 2 people hired to do layout for Advanced, which is good, but I can do it, but it is not my favorite thing.
Yeah. Oh wow. So yeah, Ultra American says he got the physical and treasures it. So
that's awesome. Wonderful.
So it was would you say it was a very willful decision to start with Big Geek and not with maybe some of the ones that people might normally try if they didn't know much about publishing?
Well, first of all, we could also sell through Lulu, and we probably will eventually.
Mm-hmm.
After we released the next book, but no, we made a deliberate choice with them because we actually got to meet them. They live in our state.
Oh, cool!
Nice. And both owners of the site. And we spent some time. They actually invited us to a convention where we 2 conventions where we demoed for their friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now we've gotten to know a lot of those guys too, which is great.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And I would much rather, if I'm going to be giving a cut of our sales to someone, be giving it to someone I actually know.
Well, and that trust, having been able to look someone in the eye and know that they know who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's business. People may still mess you over down the road, but you want them to feel bad about it, right? Whereas certain other venues, certain other places may not have the same, have that same meeting.
But that's only part of it, though. I mean, that's a major component. But we did look at also releasing it on other sites. However, we will probably eventually go over to Giant Slayer Games and a couple of other ones. Mm-hmm. After seeing how Drive-Thru RPG treated the Red Room, and after reading their terms of service, Horde Wars Basic violates their terms of service immediately.
Oh,
so why would we even bother?
Right.
Especially with their incredibly bad margins, they'll take like 30% or more of what you earn.
What's 35 the term of service that you violate?
Well, let's see. In the first adventure, there are children in danger. There's cannibalism, and just right monsters.
There. Wow.
And the children may die. That could happen. That's a possibility in the adventure.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't need rescuing if they couldn't, right?
Yes, but our game also has a adventure for where you're trying to rescue some slaves. So we feature slavery.
Oh,
not as a good thing. It's something to be opposed. But
well, I mean, if you go back far enough, every nation dealt with that, right? Like,
right.
If you're making it, even if it's fantasy, if it's a historical setting. Anyway, okay.
Oh, exactly. And we were heavily inspired by history. But let me quick read you what we wrote about this moral. Basically, our explanation for that is actually in Basic. It's like 3 sentences. Let me quick read it to you. It's in the Game Master section. Moral imperative. If you want interesting stories that engage your players, be sure to use the fact they're real people who understand right and wrong. Evil things like cannibalism, murder, slavery, and witchcraft identify enemies who should be opposed. Your players will feel good about defeating and destroying evil foes.
Yeah, that's always isn't it a crazy time we live where saying this game has a strong good versus evil component is controversial. You believe in good and evil? It's like that's why we play this stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
I do want to thank Unfiltered ID for noticing my my cardigan. I was at an after work thing and somebody was like, "Oh, I like your sweater. I love grandpa sweaters." And I was like, So I appreciate the support, Unfiltered ID. Yeah, as Cal says, good versus evil is problematic.
I mean, on Drive-Thru RPG, it clearly is. Actually, those things I just listed violate their terms and conditions. They let most people get away with it, but eventually, if they decide,
I've seen some really heinous stuff posted as far as what's permitted on that site, but
but if they ever decide to notice you, they've got it written right in where they can just boot you, no appeal, you're done.
So they don't apply it equally, but it's kind of there hanging over you. Gotcha. But getting back to Big Geek for a second, it sounds like it was a good fit. I mean, you are currently sitting at what number on their site?
Oh, number 1, both in terms of ratings and sales.
Number 1 in ratings and sales. And I remember it was it a couple months ago? It was last year. I remember you made a big push. You were like, "We're almost there, guys," on Twitter.
Yes.
So how do you?
That was for the hardcover giveaway.
Okay. Unfiltered says, "When will there be a pure evil only game?" If you haven't played with her, she really enjoys burning things. Like you got to be known for like, it was a conflagration.
Horde Wars Basic has conflagration rules.
It does.
It's your game.
Right on.
And you could play a red wizard and go light some stuff on fire.
Please do not encourage her. She will. Alfred was talking about some people just want to watch the world burn. He was thinking of her when he said that.
Now, mind you, our peasants. Now, I'm trying to remember if I included them in Horde Wars Basic. I think we might have. Let me look. Our human peasants actually have.
Yes.
Let me quick look. Yeah, we did. Actually have an ability called Burn the Witch. So, if you're a caster, try not to piss off the peasants. They can actually kill you.
Yeah. I think, doesn't Dave or Gary, one of them talks about that in original D&D. That like,
I remember seeing that snippet.
Yeah.
Have you seen monster movies?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what he goes on about. Is just a mob of villagers is nothing to trifle with.
Right on. And there's a Gene Wolfe poem, if I can wax esoteric for a bit, called "The Computer Iterates, the Greater Trumps." And one of the lines that stuck with me was that, and I can't remember word for word because it's awesome, but basically points out like there's a reason why the card for death is a naked peasant with a blade, and that the king should remember that. And good stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah, the mob with the pitchforks and torches has got. I think that's like the natural solution to murder hoboism, right? Is like they will solve their own problems if you cannot get along, if you can't keep the social contract.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man, peasants fly frontier.
Now for like lethality and that kind of thing, there are encounters that you can randomly roll that will kill your party. Yes. And that is deliberate. The odds are not high that will happen, but it can happen.
So
And
wait a minute. Hold on a second. You're telling me that not every encounter is perfectly balanced for the challenge rating of the monsters to match the PCs?
I'll put it this way. What we did for challenge rating is we put a warning in a few of the advanced book stat blocks that says it's inappropriate for tier 1. Which is level 1 to 4 characters. That's
where Winston is just casually putting his T-Rex on the screen.
Oh yeah, T-Rex is rollable. You could
very
bump
excited
into
to see
randomly.
that. Yeah, I'm very excited to see that pop up at some point.
Yeah,
and there's a 50% chance it has a mate.
Yes.
so running is an elite strategy, right?
It can be.
There is a part of the encounters, if it's unknown the distance between you and what you're encountering, you roll to see how close you pop up next to the encounter, which could be a football field away or right next to you.
Yeah.
Good luck outrunning a T-Rex.
Yeah. Running is easier in one of those options.
You just hear a snort and it just stands up out of the weeds. Like,
oh
no. Cal says 30 to 300 goblins was rolled.
Well, no, the control that the game master has, other than we've got rules for if they want to make it harder, of course, is the game master selects the stat block in the event there is more than one for that type of creature. For example, if you roll randomly for goblins, you're rolling like 4d8 or something like that for the number of goblins. But the game master then populates that from the, I think basic has like 6 different goblin stat blocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so they have some control of how bad it is.
So they could choose like the Jim Bro goblins, or they could choose the weebs, and like
yeah.
It's like the DM has a slider.
Yes, yes. Now for a T-Rex, no, you're screwed. You got the T-Rex.
There's not like an adolescent T-Rex or a vegetarian T-Rex. No, it's you just found
one
the monster.
or 2.
Yeah. The only question is it going to be like this, or is it going to be like this when you die?
Well, I think it makes it a lot more fun, and it helps enhance the idea that the world outside of civilized areas is scary.
Yeah. Well, so there's moments that players are waiting for, right? Like where they find the magical item and get to write it down on their sheet, or where they like come in with the clutch victory. And then there's the moments where the DMs live for, where I'm pretty sure that it would like tickle Winston and no end to just be able to drop 2 T-Rexes on the play mat and watch everybody's face when that happens.
All right, everybody, split up and hide.
Guess what? The 2 slowest of y'all are done.
Now on the game master end, though, I should rephrase. On the game master end for treasure, we do allow the game master to place some treasure in some of our example adventures. There's like 1 or 2 pieces of treasure placed that are linked to like a quest. Like for a fetch mission, I want a patron hires you to go get a thing. Well, that thing will be in the dungeon. And then but the primary intent is actually randomly rolled treasure. It's procedurally generated. Yeah. Based on the number of surviving player characters. So the more of you that live, the more treasure you find.
Oh, wow. So that's like pirates, right? Like,
yeah,
you need a certain amount to haul it out there, but the less of us that make it, the bigger the shares, right?
It's actually more per character who survives.
Because every player rolls for treasure, like their own treasure that gets generated. And I was thinking about this the other day. That's incentive to get the players that regularly show up to get more people to show up. Hey man, show up! We need more treasure. We need more bodies in there, more loot. Come play.
And so there are some unique magic items that Winston was alluding to that are specifically designed and kind of curated for the setting. There will be, I think, about 50% more of those in advanced. But we also have procedurally generated things like artifact weapons. And there are I think 10,000 different possible artifact weapons you can roll as a result of that table. So you won't run out of cool stuff to find. We also have unique artwork.
Mirrors.
Yeah. Unique artwork, decorative objects.
I like that kind of stuff though, because that's another dilemma, right? Like if it's just a bag of money, that's like, okay, easy grab. But if it's like, hey, it's a full-length mirror, and you don't know, is this a regular mirror or a magic mirror, or
right?
Is it expensive in its own right? But it's going to take two guys, like in the Friends episode, trying to get the mattress up the stairs. And it's like, is it worth all that? But it might be, right?
Well, and as far as that goes, our intent is that the game master use the details rolled to generate more content. So, for example, or more story. So, for example, let's say that you kill a vampire in his lair. You guys roll for treasure, and what you roll is a bunch of stuff that a vampire hunter would have owned. Well, that tells you a very different story than, for example, if you find artwork of a Death Knight or a Lich in his lair. Like that, maybe he's a minion to someone else, right? Now, we aren't using Death Knights because of intellectual property issues. We're using Horned Lords, which are completely different for legal reasons.
Right on. And they sound more awesome. So that's the intent, that you are finding more story as you're getting the treasure, and potentially leading into more adventures. But also, we actually, after we tried out some of our unique artwork and decorative objects and stuff, we started having playtesters attempt to collect all of a given object. Like they would set their own goal. They'd be like, I want to collect all of the five-headed dragon decorative objects that with that engraved on it. And so they would just go looking for that everywhere. That is an interesting choice. So years ago when Skyrim first came out and was huge, I remember running into people that I did not understand. Like, here is the biggest game at the time, and it started getting DLC, and I was like, if ever a game did not need DLC, it was that game, because there was so much stuff you could do. But I've met more than one person who, the way they enjoyed that game was they were collecting the cheeses of Skyrim.
Yeah.
And every time they found a cheese wheel or a slice of cheese or a wedge of cheese, they would just load up with those and carry it back to their Whiterun apartment, and they would just they had just a room full of cheeses. And I was like, what is going on here? And you have tapped into that. You're like, oh wow. This five-headed dragon amulet, it's part of a set. Look, yeah. Whoa. Well, they would look nice on the mantle if we had all of them, wouldn't they? You gotta admit.
Yeah, but even the one-page artwork table, that'll generate I don't know, it's let me think. I think more than 1,600 pieces of unique artwork, like descriptions.
Yeah.
So it's meant for a lot of replayability.
I love it. Is there a benefit to collecting all of those dragon busts, or is that just the reward in and of itself, is that you found them all?
Well, one, there is actually a dragon that's imagery of, so you might eventually draw that dragon's attention. That dragon stat block is in Horde Wars Advanced, though, because it would kill in 5 seconds flat a first level party of pretty much any size.
All right.
Even if you got 20 players, they'd probably die.
So, Alexander McCrease had a Kickstarter for Acts 2. And one of the things that I noticed people saying was, well, I was going to pick the system up, but I want to wait for the Kickstarter to go live. Since there's a 2 coming out, I want to just wait and buy the 2. What would you say to someone who's looking at this now and saying, well, why don't I just wait until Advanced comes out? Why should I buy Horde Wars Basic now?
Oh, well, that's pretty easy. Do you want to find out if you like the game for $5, or would you rather find out if you like the game for full price?
Right on. Right on.
Also, anyone who buys our game digitally, and as many of the physical purchasers as will share their email addresses with us, are getting an invite to our Gilded server, where you can sign up to play in one-shots with me or Nate, or in some cases, some of the other guys will hopefully be running as well. Where you can, if you just don't have a play group around you, you can at least get in for a game or two.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, how many times do you buy something and like you're the only one that has it and you can't get people to come over and play it? Like being able to especially play with the creators of the system. I don't know how many people are offering that deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's awesome. I've played twice.
Is Advanced going to cover the whole thing, or when it comes out, are you going to need both of them in order to have the full experience?
You will not need both of them to have the full experience.
Okay.
But as far as the purchasing goes, and we're gonna have to find a way to set it up on the website. But what I would like to do is, if anyone decides to buy a digital copy of Advanced, is give them a discount if they were a purchaser of Basic, equal to the price of Basic. Now, I can't guarantee that will happen because I don't control the website's capabilities.
Yeah.
But I would like to do that.
But those are the kind of things you're thinking about right now ahead of it coming out.
Yeah. But Advanced, because so to bring Basic to market cost us a few thousand, right? Mostly for artwork. To bring Advanced to market will cost us about 20 grand total.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, Nate and I are going to be paying that out of pocket with a little help from friends, which is great. But if we're able to sell enough to recoup our costs, we've got 2 more games in the pipeline that if you like Horde Wars, you will also like, because they use the same core game engine.
I get a peasant to burn with the discount code. I told you, I warned you about her.
Yeah. But because we have a superhero game that's in active playtesting right now. There's like 15 people playtesting it, I think. And we're going to be trying to get that number up to about 50 in May.
And the sci-fi game, right?
And then the sci-fi game. Yep.
Right on.
Will there be a standalone Advanced book to go with my Basic book? Yes, that is the intent, Arnie.
So if you pay your $5 right now, you don't gotta wait. You can try it out for half price, and it sounds like you've got multiple sessions you're going to run before you run out of content.
Oh, yeah.
But your characters may at some point outgrow what you can do in Basic, and that's when the Advanced will come in and get that higher level of play.
Yep. Now, technically...
That's also if they survive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, technically, you could just repeat the pattern you see in Basic and level up past that. You wouldn't be correct. Your characters would be a little underpowered, actually. But you could do that if you wanted to push it out a couple more levels, because you just have really dedicated players who really love the character.
And it sounds like we have had some people that really connected with their tavern wenches for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, we've got that as a playable career. And honestly, the reaction is usually either surprise or excitement or both. When people hear that.
Henry loves Fazoli. Does Fazoli come with free breadsticks?
All the jokes.
A regional joke or not? How far spread is Fazoli's?
It's in this region. Yes, okay. That's the.
You got a bunch of Midwest boys up here talking gaming.
Now, as far as like stat blocks go, we've included about half the length of the book for Basic, which is 194 pages, is beasts, monsters, and then NPC stat blocks for you to encounter, fight with, or be friends with. Okay. So there's a substantial amount, and Advanced should have roughly 50 to 75% more, and leaning into the mostly higher level more dangerous things.
Henry.
They always come with a meal.
What did 5 breadsticks say to the goblin face? I'm just kidding. That was.
That's how he rates the fights too.
Yeah.
Now, did you have any other questions? Because I know you haven't seen the game yourself.
I haven't. This is why I'm glad Winston's here, because I figured my questions would be the pedestrian ones, and Winston could shed some more insight on or even have better questions. I am curious. This isn't a game question so much as maybe like a how the sausage is made question. What did you need to do to get the game ready for Big Geek? Like, is that just a straight up Google Doc, or were you doing Affinity or Adobe? Like
Affinity 2.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably wind up using the same software, but a different layout scheme for advanced.
Okay.
That being said, I'm slowly getting better at Affinity 2 because it's really badly organized in my opinion, as someone who's not used to that kind of software. But it's able to do a lot of really cool things if you can figure out how to do it.
Yeah, well, and
so
the selling point is that it's like an Adobe product, but it's a one-time cost, right?
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great as far as that goes. And then
It's got a bit of a learning curve.
It does. So the basic version, though, if you pick up the PDF, like it has an actual I don't even know the term for it. Basically, there's a little menu on the side where you can click through the chapters. We embedded that. I've seen PDFs.
Oh, okay.
I've seen
There's
PDFs
like
that don't do that, and it's super annoying.
Yeah, because you just have to scroll through them all.
Yeah, that's not good for a 200-page book.
No,
What-
it's very handy.
What kind of marketing did you have to do to get to number 1?
Pretty much word of mouth. We have no marketing budget at all. So the more people are enjoying the game and sharing it with their friends, the better it does.
Okay, well, I'm happy to see you here on this show. I mean, I don't want to brag, but McCrease came on here, and then his Kickstarter went gangbusters. John McGowan came on here, and his book debuted at number 1 on Amazon. And
That's cool.
And now you've come on here, and you're number 1 on Big Geek.
Yep.
I know that my less than 200 subscribers probably had something. No, I don't know. This is a tiny channel. I'm glad you came on here. So number 1 on Big Geek, did Horde Wars pay out? Did it cover all the costs that went into it?
Oh, basic, no, but that's deliberate. Nate and I deliberately chose a selling point that would cause us to lose money because we want people to try our game.
Got it.
Right? So when Advanced comes out, Basic's price will go up to about $10 because that's the only thing that'll make it viable on other websites. We have a specific agreement with the Big Geek Emporium guys. They are getting a cut, but it is less than most other sites would charge.
Okay. So it's like a lost leader, kind of like you sell the Nintendo for cheaper because the game's coming down the road.
Exactly.
You'll have a built-in audience. All right.
Exactly.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that strategy with me.
Yeah. And then Advanced, that pricing, I mean, the physical will be dependent on how much our printing costs are, which are slowly going up all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our intent is to set it up so that we have a fairly thin profit margin up front on the physical product because we want people to be able to afford it. But then that will go up after the first month or so. I think would be the idea.
Right on.
And then and that's partly to reward people who have like enjoyed our game so far, and if they want to snap up that book at a lower price, I think that's a good way to do it. It's actually what the people who own Affinity did when they released Affinity 2. They did a soft launch and only informed the people who'd bought Affinity 1.
Yeah.
And then a couple months later, they did their actual launch at the full price.
Yeah, and I bought it at full price. I should have done on a soft launch. I just had other things I was thinking about at that time.
And but the PDF for advanced will probably be price point probably about 15.
Okay.
And that's, again, we have to pay the artists, and so Nate and I will be out the money either way, and it would be nice to recoup those costs. If we break even, we're going to turn that money right into another book, and hopefully also put out an like for the superhero game, and then hopefully also be able to put together an anthology of people writing adventures for Horde Wars. And then if we make a profit, there's a supplement that we'd like to do, but we got to hire some artists for it. And that would be a rarities and oddities supplement, which would include variants of the core playable species, as well as 5 additional ones, and some extra unique treasure and that kind of thing. Because all of that requires a fair amount of artwork to be good, we would need to have Horde Wars Advanced making money before we put out that product.
Yeah. So this wasn't a one-shot deal. Like, you got plans on plans down the road for this stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All righty. So those are some of my pedestrian questions. Do you have any more nuanced ones, Winston? Now that I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're mostly
because all I got left is Twitter drama after this.
Yeah, I mean, mostly not so much questions, just sharing my experiences and stuff with it, because I've been reading through it, trying to make my own content for it for my table, pushing it out to the people that I play with to get into it. You see, Henry's pretty into it. Because their group wants to meet once a week, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So they
awesome.
They really right. They really enjoyed the session we played Monday as we stumbled our way through a few things. But it's just I'm still finding like little snippets because I've read through the rules, but now as I'm running it, it's just like, well, what's this rule? What's the coming across the situation and stuff. And then I had to do with like Henry shenanigans and stuff like that.
I bet Henry is like a difficulty modifier for DMs.
He definitely
like a chaos engine.
Yes, absolutely.
But for memorable sessions.
So it's I would say it's a excellent swap stand-in for 5e. I'm done playing 5e. It's Horde Wars.
I'm glad to hear it, man.
Because it's just so much more fun. As we've been talking about, pointing out like the differences between it. Because as you're playing, you miss in 5e if it comes around all the way around your turn again. You miss. That's another 5 minutes or more that you're not playing. Now, if you're playing any of the characters you're playing, if you have a fighting style and you're using a weapon that matches your fighting style, you get 2 attacks, and that's just right out the gates. Nice. So when we played, we had a bunch of misses, but I don't think we really, maybe one where they missed both of them. But most of the time they hit one of them. They're still doing damage, and when they were fighting the 6 HP goblins, they're putting it down too. So constantly keeping the players engaged by affecting things, doing something on their turn. Yeah. My Henry's wife, who's playing a dwarven white wizard dungeon delver, and took the Beastmaster feat, so she has an Irish Wolfhound guard dog.
Oh, nice!
Adventuring with them as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so cool just having like this really unique party, and then the players playing in a really absurd way. 2 orcs, 1 dwarf. They bust in the goblin cave, yell race war, and start smashing goblins.
Oh man, race war. Okay,
that was Henry's plan.
Why the D12? Because I feel like the D12 is the one that doesn't get much love in the collection. So I was kind of happy to see the D12.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's part of it, that it doesn't, we felt it was underutilized, but also it makes for a more exciting game. One, you can narrow the math a bit, but two, you almost double the odds of getting a critical hit.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
It's like what, each number is like an 8.2,
8 and a third or so.
Yeah, 8.3 chance, which is so like you look at it initially and you're like, I get +2 to my combat, but that's effectively plus 16%. So it would be a +3 in 5e, which is pretty substantial. And so like you're looking for those little, benefits and stuff that you can utilize because again, it is tactical, it is lethal.
So that's what you mean when you say turns it up to 11 by switching the dice that you use. Everything has more importance.
Everything's been raised. So like, with using the D12, the bonuses matter because you can get flanked just as much as you can flank enemies, and there's going to be more of them than there are you. And getting hit doesn't feel good because you've got a fairly static HP pool with some variance. It's not going to vary a whole lot, so it's going to be pretty similar to everyone else. And the resting mechanics, you can't rest until you get back to town from the adventure, and you can only benefit from potions once a day. So
that's cool.
Your resources are limited. You ideally don't want to get hit, but
it's like drinking too much coffee. You can only spaz out so hard, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But also, Winston, do you recall the affliction mechanic? Can you explain that? Because that's the other reason we went with the D12.
The affliction mechanic, it's like exhaustion from 5e. So, sleeping outdoors, or there's certain creature effects too. Like I think a vampire does affliction, and there's like poisons and stuff like that. Well, every tier of affliction lowers your die type. So you're no longer rolling a D12 to attack. You're rolling a D10 with like one level of affliction, and then a D8, and then a D6. So you're far less effective.
Almost like a DCC dice pool, except without all the weird like D7s and D5s.
Yeah. And once you go below a D4, you're either unconscious or dead.
Yeah.
No matter what your hit points are.
So you're feeling it all the way down. Like it's not just like, oh, I've got exhaustion, I'm afflicted. It's you're feeling it.
So you really have to make the choice of whether you want to push it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Well, that you come up with the treasure and stuff too. You're hauling that stuff on my first run. Fortunately we had some extra hands and stuff, but I rolled up a whole ass treasure chest full of money, like and had to haul that back, and then ran into bears.
Oh yeah, those opportunistic bears just looking for an easy score.
The bears went pretty well actually for their party, relatively speaking.
It was about as good as it could go for us. When you're running encounters and stuff, everyone has to roll to in majority pass. It's a majority pass fail, so the majority passes their check. You go by the day without encounters, but if it leans more towards failure, you roll number of encounters up to like a D4 worth of encounters for that day, and then you roll when they occur, and then you roll what they are.
Okay.
So we rolled one encounter. We rolled later in the evening, so we're closer to town. So even if it had gone real bad, probably not, but some relief there if we just wanted to cut and run. And then we rolled 2 bears out of a potential 6 and almost got slaughtered.
Yep.
So it could have gone so much worse.
Yeah. So okay, this is something that Winston's experienced this before, which is why he like hinted towards it. I want from each of you, I want a story of something that either it was just a crazy moment that happened playing Horde Wars, or it was the kind of experience that you could only get playing Horde Wars. I don't know if that prompts you enough, but I want to hear some actual play examples, and I'll let you guys choose who goes first.
Go ahead. I think I know which one you're going to share.
Yeah. So as last time we played, I was playing my same character from the first adventure, which was a Brown Wizard thief, because you have a Brown Wizard in this.
Heck yeah, man.
And they're druid-esque. Their primary element they use is acid, but they're able to transform into beast. And all three of us that were playing were at least half wizard as part of our class. So we had a job available to us that was given to us by an archmage. And there's only one of each class of archmage in the world. So big job for a bunch of first level guys. But he paid us lots of money, and then he offered us his library of spell scrolls from the advanced edition. So we got to play around with, the big stuff, the big toys. So I picked the higher tier Brown Wizard spell called Rampage, which allowed you to transform into a beast with much more HP. It's like almost, but not quite 3 times the amount of HP. Just a bigger monster that you can. Yeah. Very cool. There's a lot of neat options on there. Had to get a boat. Well, we didn't have to get a boat. Our job was to infiltrate an old dwarven city that was taken over by a dragon. We had this information because the alternative mission, he offered us 2 choices. The alternative was to invade the tower of an archlich to take an item.
So you got to choose between a dragon and an archlich.
Yeah. So
not pulling any punches, are you, Blackwall?
Oh, no.
It was. So we chose the dragon, and it was like, well, if we go by land, we have to go through the barbarians' land, and that sounded less than fun and lengthy. So we're like, we could go by boat. We did, through the course of play, we narrowed it down. We're like, hey, let's take a boat. And then we hired the cheapest boat that we possibly could because we spent all our money on scrolls. And that chose to be a bad option for us.
So you're just like sitting on a barrel with a pole.
It was like a little fishing boat with like a father and his son. And we're like, we need you to take us up the coast.
To the dragon.
And we were given 2 choices. We don't have like the maritime rules, but of course Blackwall does. So if you stick closer to the coast, you roll more often, more frequently for. Yeah, he's right. It would have taken a long time. But if you go near the coast in a boat, you roll encounters more frequently, but they're lower encounters, like lower level type stuff. Or you go to the deeper water.
Circle back to the advice that was given to stay near the coast.
Yes. So if you go to the deeper, it rolls like it's a quarter as many times you get to roll for encounters, but the encounters can be horrendous.
They'll put you in the I shouldn't be alive show if you have one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were going along and we encountered some deep ones right off, almost off the get-go. And that was a rough fight by itself because we rolled a bunch of them and they had some different, like not just mooks, but like some heavy hitters among their number. I don't think they had any priests because I think Blackwall said we'd be really dead if they had priests. And that was at night. That was just really rough all around. And we scraped by through that.
You're on this like just father-son boat.
It's straight out of Call of Cthulhu, like just a bad time. So we're going along, days, weeks later, and behind us, Captain's like, that's weird. We look, and there's just steam rising up from the ocean, but it's coming towards us. And he's like, that shouldn't be here. And we're like, what shouldn't be here? And it's an Arctic worm, like a giant Arctic. It apparently heats its body so it can burrow through glaciers. Yeah. And it was in the ocean, steaming up the ocean and pursuing us.
That's horrifying.
We're in a fishing boat, so we're doing as best as we can, but it is gaining top speed. Yeah. Yes. So it just like, oh, what do we do? And we had one guy who just popping off a couple arrows, and most our like cantrips and stuff are fairly close range. They're not like the range that we needed to, because as soon as that we were in range to use those, it was it was just a bad time at that
I
point.
need a bigger boat.
So it ensued a nasty fight, and in the midst of the fight, I'm like, I'm going to bust out my scroll. I'm going to use it. It's called Rampage.
Right on.
And I'm like, I'm going to rampage. I'm going to transform into a wyvern, just a
Ooh.
big old creature,
Flying poison dragon.
Yeah, and so started harassing that, and it wasn't paying me any mind for the most part. Just still trying to attack the boat, and I was getting some good hits, and I think we got it down to like half health.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
which was
you
like,
and the archer especially.
So yeah, so we're like level 1 dudes. We have some powerful tools, but we're level 1 dudes, and we did 120 damage of this 240 HP monster at first level. And then it's like, I'm tired of the wyvern attacking me, so it turns around, and it's in its full round of attacks, it eats me. It does enough damage to just finish me off and eat me. Yeah, and that was it. And then he rolled to see if it was sated with that, or whether it wanted, a bit more.
So there's a reaction roll mechanic.
Yeah, so basic includes morale rules. Advanced will also include the randomized monster behavior information, which is basically if you have a monster that might behave in one of several ways believably, take a D4, assign the most likely option to 2 of the sides, like 1 and 2, and then the second and third most likely option to the 3 and the 4, and then have one of the players roll the die.
I love it. The
reason for that, the player rolling the die, is they actually like to gamble. I don't know if you know this or not about role players, but they'll almost always have an outcome they want, and the players are typically more excited to do the rolling themselves.
Okay. Well, it's still random, but they feel a little more.
Yeah.
They have the illusion of just that much more control over it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. We did more in that adventure. We got our adventure. I just had to bring in a new character because mine had gotten eaten.
I really like that. Forbidden Lands has a similar, for monsters, it has a table of attacks that they can do, and you roll on it, and it kind of neutralizes the DM's ability to attack optimally, right? Or to just focus on one target until they're dead. By putting it in the hands of the dice, it's like, no, this is a beast. You don't know how it's going to act. It may have more devastating attacks that it can't do as often. And by randomizing it, you're just making it more like part of the world that they're understanding and having to deal with, rather than a worm that's able to think like a man. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, we did also incentivize monster behavior. Most of the monsters and beasts, not all of them, but most of them, have a built-in thing that lets them do an extra die of damage on all their attacks if a condition's met. So in the case of zombies, they get an extra die of damage if they flank you. This encourages zombie mobs to exist.
Yeah.
Not because of something we're like writing zombies must mob, but because any game master who wants them to be dangerous will then do that.
You're rewarding the optimal behavior rather than demanding it.
Exactly.
Got it.
And then
is that the story you thought he was going to share?
It is.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, there's much more to that. It was nuts, like how much we did in a 3-hour span, because we did get to the Dwarven City.
Sounds like the boatman didn't make it.
No.
His son did.
Done okay?
His son his son is an owner of a new boat owner.
Poor kid.
So yeah, for me, it was probably the first session I ever ran of this game system after I wrote the first draft.
Okay.
Because we had 5 players who had played role-playing games before. They were not inexperienced at that, but they'd never played the system before, and they were able to, in a single session, fight, I think it was like 30 or 40 different goblins. 5 different goblin stat blocks. Like they had a caster, they had like a goblin in plate armor, they had a chieftain, they had a bunch of different abilities, and the players managed to not only win the encounter, Like this was a single mass battle, like in a forest
Mm-hmm.
against all these goblins, but they also did it in like an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And then we were like, okay, yeah, they were scared and were actively doing stuff to try to keep each other alive. The players, they were like, oh man, no, I'm going to die if I don't. We need to work together actually, and they won.
The shield line must hold, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that to me let us know we were on the right track for having a fun game that also was moving quickly.
Yeah,
because if I tried to do that same encounter in 3.5 or 5th edition D&D or even AD&D, actually,
players would just
it'd be quite the grind.
You'd have to save the progress for the next 2 sessions because of how much combat there is.
Well, so that had to feel good to like have that idea, to design it on purpose, and then the first time it comes into contact, you're like, we just did a mass combat with 30 goblins, and we could register the engagement that the players had while they were playing this.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And the playtesting has helped a lot in terms of refining the game. Like we had maneuvers in the game right out the gate, but we didn't have nearly as many. And it was playtesting and player feedback that let us know we needed to include more.
Okay. It sounds like you guys might be a little bit dumb for selling this for only $5. Like,
well, it's a limited time price, but it'll still be the case for at least the next 6 to 8 months.
Right on. So you guys want to anybody watching this? If this sounds fun to you, if you've been playing 5e and you're like, man, all my players just want to play 5e, I can't get them to try something else, and then you have the promise of, hey, how would you like it if the combat was more epic and went faster? I think you got to jump on this, honestly.
Yeah, and and even for someone who's playing like Henry with Winston, I would encourage you to pick up a copy anyway, again for $5, so that you can get on the Gilded server. So if you have rules questions, you can ask us. If you have feedback about game design, you should hop on that.
I advertise that all the time, just like, because that's right now most of my experience is playing with you on the Gilded server and just having an absolute fantastic time. Like it just being able to play like a full adventure in the time and having so many fun stories just from the time that I've played. It's just like more people should play this.
Yeah, so that was one of the things. I don't know how many of you watching this were watching Rolling Bones this week. James Streisand went on there and was talking with Real Grey Mage. And one of the things that came out was, according to, and I'm not a 5e expert by any means, but supposedly in 5e, you're supposed to be able to get through 6 encounters a night. I've never done that in 5e. Like, honestly,
I've never played with a fully proficient table at 5e. There's usually 1 or 2 newer people, or they show up and that's what they do. They do no reading outside of the games, so they're there, and so it slows down because not everyone is. If you had 5 people that interchangeably DM'd and were familiar with the rules, hard maybe.
No, I've done that. I ran it for a while and played in other people's games, and it can't do that unless you lean really hard on solo monsters. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe Mr. Streisand can do that, and he probably can, but it did not sound like Mage did, and I certainly haven't ever had that experience. Is there like a sweet spot for Horde Wars of how many encounters you should expect to run in a typical 4-hour session?
Well, the pre-constructed adventure, the kind of example of game rules where it kind of helps teach you about cover and about using timers. So for example, it'll be not really a spoiler because if you read the adventure, you'll see it. But there's initially a fight with like a dozen goblins. And then you have the opportunity to go follow the other goblins who've also raided this town and kidnapped some people back to their cave. Then there's even more goblins to fight who are dancing around having a great time. But at the same time as the dancing around ones, there is an ogre sleeping in the cave entrance and you can hear his snoring.
Okay.
And so once you start a fight, you have a limited amount of time before that ogre wakes up and joins in. Mm-hmm. And it's a D4 rounds from when you start the fight. So,
and is he going to weigh in on the sides of the goblins, or is he on his own team?
No, he's on the side of the goblins.
Okay.
And there are other goblins. They've got some wolves who are allied to them. There's also some goblins hiding in the woods that you may or may not have noticed. And then there's potentially 4 encounters right there, but a minimum of 2.
Okay. Depending
on how things go.
How quickly it goes, yeah.
Well, and if you notice the guys hiding in the woods or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into the goblin warrens themselves, where there's another encounter. And then right and left, there is the place where the prisoners, if any surviving prisoners are. And then there's another room where there's the Goblin King and like his bodyguards and such. Right on. So you'd have somewhere between 5 and 7 encounters in that adventure.
All right. And is that doable in 4 hours?
That's doable in 3 with people who've never played.
So that's making characters and doing all that.
Yeah. Well, or picking up a precon. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you concur on that, Winston?
I tried. So when I ran Henry's group, we're still in the middle of said adventure, the first one, but we got a bit slow start. I think we played a little under 3 hours, and we did the first couple encounters and I tried to mirror it because I'm still.
Well, but Henry was in the group, though, right?
That's true.
I told you he'd be a difficulty modifier.
I'm still getting my sea legs as far as learning how to do the encounters and run the game smoothly.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, sure. That makes sense. I have the advantage of having run that encounter a few times before because I've gone and run it at conventions and such. But we're talking, I've probably run the game, that specific encounter at least 35 times.
Oh, I'm sure. We got about halfway through. We got through the bigger portion. They just have to finish the rest of it on Monday, which I'm sure they will, and then we'll start the next one as well. But as we play more, we'll see that. I mean, they still had fun.
Yeah,
and I got the same feedback from all 3 of them. They had a lot of fun. They're looking forward to the next one.
It's all about that hashtag book control. And I know what that's like. Like I tried running some guys face to face through Adventure Conquer King system, and there is time for the DM to flip back and forth and get their bearings and stuff. So I'm sure the farther you go with it, probably the quicker it'll go for you, Winston.
Yeah. One selling point as far as that goes is one thing that always annoyed me with D&D stat blocks in pretty much every edition is the creatures that can cast spells who are intended to be your opponents.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spell information is usually not on that page.
Yeah. So
that is not so in our game. All of the spell information is on the page with the stat block. It's actually embedded in the stat block itself.
Everything you need, yeah.
That's a good design choice. Ironman says, my last game had 4 random encounters, an encounter with Draken guards and boss fight with enemy mages with golems. Should have reduced the random encounters, I think. Sounds like that was a lot.
Yeah, well, we are, depending on your party size, of course, Ironman, you always could choose to, even if you kept the same number of random encounters, you could always choose to do half the monsters if you've got a half-size party.
Okay.
Like it's meant for 4 to 6 players. So if you've got 3, you might want to. You don't have to.
We did really well in our game. We fought all the zombies. in bears.
Yeah. You guys were
Zombies,
rolling
bears,
full. There was no.
dragon.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, for the bears, I think it was a D6 bears, and they got lucky. They got 2.
Oh man, that could have been.
They're nasty too. Like they're about as tough as like cave trolls or something. Like almost on the same.
No, I mean in terms of their initial hit points, they're about as strong as a weak troll, but they of course don't have regeneration.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas the troll does. So here's another example of a time saving, right? So in our game, regeneration can be negated with the right effect, right, for a Hydra or a troll or whatever. But assuming it hasn't been negated, what regeneration does is it gives the monster full hit points at the beginning of each of his turns.
Oh wow, that is
so you either have to kill him in one round, or you need to negate his regeneration.
Yeah.
And our orcs have a lesser version of that called orcish regeneration or orc regeneration. And what that does is they regain their full hit points a minute after they received their last damage.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing I like about that as far as speeding things up is I'm not doing a bunch of math as a DM going, okay, well, he gets, after 3 rounds, he's going to get 10% back. And no, it's just like, oh, top of the round, good to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tank is full. You guys had your chance. You wasted it. Now you better run.
Yep.
Yeah. So now, did you want to talk about the controversy a little or no?
Sure, but before I do, let me get my banners back up here.
Great.
Just if people want more DM Blackwall, if they want more Horde Wars, here's the link to purchase Horde Wars on Big Geek Emporium. Again, $5 right now. Sounds like a steal. Almost like wondering about the sanity of the people that created this for putting it out at that price. But I'm not gonna judge. If you want to follow DM Blackwall, he's active on Twitter. I've had good conversations with you on there and stuff. So just DM_Blackwall on Twitter. I don't know why you put the StreamYard in the front. Let me see if I can edit that. But if you want a physical copy, let's try it like that. This is his email address.
Yeah, that's our public-facing email. So if you'd like to order a physical copy, base price is $25 for a soft cover or $35 for the spiral-bound plastic cover. Now, we have a limited supply of the plastic cover. I think we still have we did a second or third print run on the soft covers. So I think we've got 40 of them left or something, and we can do another print run if we start running low. So shipping within the U.S. is $10 to $20, depending basically on where you live, and that container will hold 1 or 2 books at that price.
Okay. If people wanted a signed copy, is that something you guys would be up for?
Oh, sure.
So just put that in the email if you want them to sign your copy. That's pretty sweet. And then if this hasn't been enough for you, if hearing about it from the creator and the fans and the players, and you need a little bit more, a bro is our bro blogs receipts, and Brown Wizard Winston has shared on Medium his review of the product as well. So I encourage you guys.
Which has the play report too of my first session, and that wild ride with bears and zombies. It was just right after. It was just phenomenal experience.
So I think I put all of those in the comments. I might not have put the last one in the comment. So let me grab that and chuck it in the comments for the for those joining us on YouTube. And I'm not sure how it works. This is only my 3rd time streaming to Twitter. So sorry if you guys are watching and you're like, I don't see any of those links. But if you come back and watch the replay, you should have them, and I will put them in the description for the video. So anything else that I didn't cover, anything that you guys want to Anything that you want to flog right now as far as how people can get more Brown Wizard action or more DM Blackwall action?
I've just been posting minis lately on Twitter. Haven't been doing much else. I may be dropping more snippets of the stuff that I'm working on as I'm working on it. But it'll probably be more minis for a little while, and then I will start as soon as we get. I get some more games in. I'll be doing play reports of those adventures as well in my blog. So,
Cool.
Kind of tracking what we do, and then typical play report, share my thoughts and stuff, and then it's super handy. I just get on the Gilded, ask questions. Hey, this has a sort of weird interaction. How do I resolve this? Gilded. Other players, Blackwall's on there.
Why are the orcs blue?
Oh,
Why not green like everybody else?
One, you're ignoring the pigskin ones being pink sometimes. But no, we went with blue orcs because they live in a frozen environment and they tend to sail in longships. And so blue would be a much better color for them in terms of survival and blending in with their environment.
Nice. Kind of that woad Viking thing going.
Yeah, well, and now, speaking of controversies, there has been repeatedly for some years now a cyclical accusation of orcs being stand-ins for black people, which is wildly racist, by the way. And we wanted to make it incredibly clear that no, that is not the case. So our orcs are basically a stand-in for a bunch of white guys.
Right on. Is that racist in its own way, though? I don't want to touch. I mean, obviously, it is an element. I mean, Henry likes to yell "race war" when he kicks in a goblin door.
They just hate goblins, man.
Yeah,
and they should. I don't know if you caught it or not. Now we are to make this a little child friendly. We're not explaining it. But right. You may notice in the adventure that if you're late to get there, a D4 of the captives will be dead, and then there's extra goblins for each dead captive added to the encounters.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is that's how the goblins reproduce.
Oh.
They eat you and use your body to hatch out of.
Wow. Like a wasp or something.
Or for example,
that's
like
horrific.
The aliens from the Alien franchise, or like the Magog from Starship Andromeda.
Okay. So that is a good reason. If you hear that people have been captured by the goblins, that's a good reason not to dilly-dally on your way to rescue.
Don't negotiate, smite. Smite only.
Yes. So you should hate them. They want to kill and eat you.
I hate goblins. Get the one red eye smoking out of your visor. I'm for that. I like bad guys to be bad. I don't like the Starship Enterprise where every single evil race is on the bridge and part of the part of the Federation, right? Like the Klingons are the kind of guys that fart in an elevator. Like they need to be stopped. They're not on your side. The goblins, the orcs, the bad guys should be bad guys. I'm sorry if I just got all three of us canceled by expressing that preference. But the cool thing is,
the orcs can convert though. You can play as an orc.
Yep. So the orcs in our game are capable of making good moral choices. They can. Which distinguishes them from the goblins. We thought that was important because in D&D, orcs are basically just big goblins.
Okay.
It may not be popular to say that, but because there's like lore that says otherwise. But mechanically, that's all they are.
Well, in 40K, there was the orcs, there was the Gretchen, and there were the Snotlings, right? So there was like 3 levels of orkiness.
Right. And so we wanted to make a clear differentiation between them. And so while the orcs are generally a threat in that they are raiding, looking for silver, looking for slaves, you could negotiate with them and they might actually keep their word.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas the goblins won't.
Yeah. Right on. All right. More controversy. What else do we need to talk about? You know that this channel that I am fascinated with the Bro SR. I am very interested in their methods. I am very interested in the kind of things that they're trying to do. I realize that they are not always kind to people online, and that is a huge hurdle for some to overcome. I believe Gelatinous Rube recommended that you unalive yourself. So
More
what
than
on earth
once.
did you
He's a
say to
bundle
get
of fun.
him riled?
Oh goodness.
Yeah, more than once. He's a bundle of fun. I wouldn't mind.
What did you do to get him so torqued off, bro?
Oh, I agreed with him, but not entirely.
We'll do it.
Ah.
Do you remember? Well, I mean, I'm not trying to open old wounds or whatever. But
Well, for the one thing, it was essentially that many of the recommendations he was making, he claimed to have thought of, but that isn't true. I know it's not true because I was taught the same things by guys who are 30 years older than I am.
Okay, such as
20 years ago. I've seen him. He's not that old. He definitely did not come up with those ideas.
Like what?
So,
can you give me an example?
So the and also, of course, there's written evidence in the form of stuff that Gary and Dave Arneson and others did at the time. But the idea of a living world, the idea of having a campaign where you have multiple characters and you're doing consistent timekeeping across potentially multiple game sessions with multiple with maybe 30 or 40 real humans playing in the same world, or 100. And that's not new. People were doing that in the 80s and in the 70s. And in fact, also though, how to phrase this? It's like, from what I can tell, a lot of the Bro SR guys are, I mean, other than some rudeness, have rediscovered a thing that was common knowledge when I was young.
I would agree with that. I think that there are younger folks that
that's true, Henry.
Yeah. Anytime someone says, well, Gary never played that way, he just put it in the rolls, it's like, well, cocaine was a heck of a drug, right? I would say that that's true, though, that there are younger people that not only have they never played that way, that when they went back and looked at the original evidence that you're talking about, they got mad and they were like, why wasn't this passed down? Why did we have to rediscover it? Why did the hobby leave these things behind? See, the thing for me about them is that, like, I feel like the strongest arguments are held by people that their Venn diagram looks like a vaporwave dot, right? Like there's only like tiny, like 1 pixel of coloration on the outside. Like we mostly agree about everything.
Yeah.
And then there's just like you say, there's like 1 or 2 things, and that becomes
weird hills to die on.
Yeah. So an example we talked about a little beforehand is one-to-one timekeeping. Now, I do agree that you should keep time, especially if you've got multiple sessions, multiple DMs, multiple players and characters in the same world who may or may not be all together at the same moment in real life physically. That's a good idea. And it's necessary if you want the world to feel lived in. So, for example, I have an ongoing campaign right now where there are 3 different sessions, 2 different DMs, and like 15 different players, maybe 20. And so we have to keep consistent timing between those sessions to make things make sense in the world, because they're doing stuff like they're play testing the superhero game, right? But like one of them has a tow truck and he is impounding the vehicles of the other party.
Okay. Nice.
Another one broke into a rich guy's yacht and stole his hat, who is in one of the other groups. He's a player.
Yeah.
Or another one got himself elected to city council. And so now he's influencing events in the world or in that city in a way that the other players can't, because he actually has some legal authority.
He's invited to the committee meetings.
Correct. And so a lot of this stuff, like they're actively messing with each other, and most of these people know each other in real life. They've played together before, and so they're having a lot of fun doing that. So you need to keep consistent timing between sessions, and that makes sense. One-to-one timekeeping, however, is incredibly stupid. And here's why. You're a human. You will die of old age before you finish playing an elf or a dwarf. So either you are only ever going to play one that one character unless they die violently, or a few of them maybe. Or you could speed up the timekeeping compared to real life. You could have a week or a month or a year go by between sessions. And as long as you're consistent across a broad campaign where you've got multiple DMs and multiple play groups, it's not a problem because you always catch up with each other.
Yeah.
It seems like that might be, as far as the multiple DM thing, like you would have to get everyone on the same page and say, all right, all of our sessions are going to jump forward a month.
Exactly. Right. But you do that and you say and you basically just say every session a month will go by the end of it, like before we play in the next session. You just establish that as a rule. But the other thing is, of course, a lot of games have an in-game timer for how often you can mess with the kind of politics in the world. So D&D 3.5 had examples of this with organizations where you could pretty much only take an organization level action once per month. AD&D had this for the Birthright campaign setting, where you had once a month, once a season, or once a year abilities.
Okay.
And this was intended for mass domain play, where you were affecting the world, ruling nations. Well, that means you should probably have the time passing between sessions match the game rules so that you can continue taking meaningful actions at that level of play, rather than going, all right, in a month in real life, you can do a thing again with your domain.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I guess the reason I don't jump both feet into what you're saying about one-to-one is stupid is that there are other things that it has permitted that have just been absolutely jaw-dropping. Like, I don't know if you if you watched all the stuff that happened with the Stormbringer sword in Trollopolis. Are you aware of this? I don't want to repeat if you already know. Well, I guess there's people watching that may not know. All right, so Jeff Rowe playing Trollopolis, he just lets drop that a guard wants to, or that a guard needs to talk to the prince to get permission to do something the players are asking him to do. And they're like, they get all interested. They're like, who's this guard that talks to the prince? Who's the prince? And he just was like, oh, it's and he describes Elric of Melniboné. And that brings a very powerful sword into Trollopolis that has a demigod inside of it and can suck the souls out of people. Just that momentary choice, that powerful magic artifact became a bone of contention in the campaign as everyone tried to capture it and master it. Eventually they decided we're gonna plane shift this sucker out of existence. But because they were using one-to-one time, they decided to shunt it into another campaign called Dubs Are Own that B-Dubs was running and saying we're going to make it his problem now. And there were some players that were playing in both. And so that shifted over.
So to be clear, from what I'm following so far, what you're describing, I agree with, which is keeping one-to-one time between the campaign sessions. Not one-to-one with real life time. That's the thing I'm saying is stupid.
Well, they were using a calendar. They were using a real life calendar so that everybody knew what day things were happening.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Not in the sessions. The sessions were going just like probably everyone else does, like where you could get way out ahead of the calendar in the session. But the idea is when we all stand up at the end of the session, it snaps back to the calendar day.
Real time.
And so just to jump ahead a little bit, crazy stuff happened. A guy with a spaceship grabbed the sword and said, I'm throwing this into the sun because it's caused problem in 2 campaigns now. The guy actually, I don't know what he does for a living. I don't know if he's a astrophysicist or something. But what happened is the people in Dubs Our Own, they were playing in Adventure Conquer King setting of the Aran Empire, and they were like, hey, this thing's not just going to go into the sun and melt. The sun is the god Aminar in this campaign, and if he gets hit with a sword that can suck the soul out of a being, that's not going to be good. Like the main god of light and goodness is going to get sucked into this sword. And so they were like, all right, well, what happens? And then this guy, the astrophysicist guy, was able to figure out, okay, well, on the date that I released this sword, the orbital decay of it falling towards the sun, everybody knew that, and I don't know the exact date, but like September 15th, let's say, everybody knew on September 15th that sword's gonna hit the sun. And so you've got this time, what are you gonna do? And so all in, like, at this point there's like 5 or 6 different 1-to-1 time campaigns that have gotten looped in, and they're all like, okay, all of our good clerics are going to be praying all week and donating alms and stuff. And they're like, okay, for every week that the good guys do this, they'll get this many star giants to help them out. And because the idea is that he's not just a sun, he's a god, and he's going to try and stop it. He's not just going to take the hit. But all of the evil characters and players and monsters were like, no, we're going to protect that sword and make sure it lands home. And so they decided, okay, if the sword hits, something awful is going to happen to all of these campaigns for the good side. They're all getting they're all getting nerfed, or the bad guys in all these campaigns are going to get a buff.
Oh, absolutely. So that's one of the joys of massive campaigns. With dozens and dozens of players. I run those. I've got one going right now. I've done a number, but you don't need to match real world time to make that happen. You have to match time internally within those campaigns. That's the important thing.
Well, I agree. I would agree with that. I would just say that 1-to-1 time, as far as getting everybody on the same page, if you tell everyone September 14, that's the easiest to organize. You don't have to say, all right, well, this week we're jumping a month. And then the next week it'll, it's just, everybody just knows one day is one day. And then you can do these little downtime, which I'm sure you know all about that stuff, but, so I'm not disagreeing with you. It's totally possible. I'm just saying that like some really jaw-dropping stuff could happen, and could happen easily if everybody just commits to the calendar.
I completely agree with internal consistency with the calendar. I think it's a good idea. As I said, it's actually a fairly minor point of disagreement, but a lot of people will get pretty grumpy.
All of them are, though, right? Like, that's my point, is that like the fighting is so intense because the stakes are so low. We are like,
because if you pay attention to the design in Horde Wars Basic, and I do hope you pick it up, you will see that Nate and I agree with a lot of those principles. Tracking time is actually important in our game, in part because of the random monster encounters. Traveling away from civilization, not so good for your health. Long journeys are worse.
Stick to the shore.
Just don't go on the boat. Or get a bigger boat.
But also
save your scroll money for the boat.
It's too tempting. Like, I
get to turn into a wyvern, and then you get eaten.
Content we don't have access to. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But also, as far as the that stuff goes, we actually have things like astronomical events listed.
Nice.
We have festivals listed. Like, this is in Basic, just right in the skill descriptions. So if you look up art and culture, the skill, you're going to find out about different festivals that are taking place throughout the year in the world. And so it matters where you are when those festivals happen, because each of them has a primary descriptor. This is the norm of how this festival is practiced. And then it has, but then in this place they do it differently, or they have a different holiday. which works this way. And
Okay.
so where you are when will affect your experiences in the world if your game master bothers to do what he should do and track the time.
So, as far as learning Horde Wars, would you recommend that a new DM or player just read it cover to cover, or is there like an optimal way to jump around in the book?
I mean, I think I think it would be smart for the game master to read the core rules, which is just chapter 1.
Okay. Yeah, it
which
sounds
is
like you
just-
were very
everyone-
economical fitting.
Yeah.
I know this is advanced, but fitting mass combat on one page.
yeah.
Fitting the core rules in chapter 1. It sounds like you guys that was one of your design goals was
Yeah. Have you ever looked at a rules cyclopedia?
like the original one, or
Yeah.
No, I haven't actually.
Okay. So the rules cyclopedia was intended at the time to basically hold all of AD&D's rules in a single volume.
Okay.
And its layout, which isn't the best, shows the intent. So Nate and I decided to try to do the same kind of thing from the ground up. We want to give you the entire game, or the entire low-level game in this case,
Yeah.
and then in one volume. So we did that by design, and that means you have to make certain choices about, like even just for spell descriptions. So, for example, D&D 5th edition will have half-page spell descriptions sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Our spell descriptions are the effects of the spell. There's no extra flavor text.
Mhm.
It's just, this is what it does. And we had to design to make them fit in stat blocks on a single page or a half page or a quarter page. And so that really affected our design to make sure that this was the best game we could make, and it would be the most useful and have the most dense content, which doesn't mean we don't have some empty space on some pages. We do, partly because for basic, we couldn't afford to just fill it with a bunch of extra artwork.
Yeah.
But
White space is no crime. Like, I'm a fan.
but there is a fair amount of artwork in there, probably 50 or 60 pieces. But each page, like, we tried to make it easy to reference. So as much as possible, like, all the rules for a thing are on one page or on 2 pages together.
Minimize flipping.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right on. Arnman says, I passed out the books to my group, and by the time I had finished setting up, one of the guys was halfway done creating his first character already. So,
Oh yeah, that's great.
and
And
it sounds like
and what you could,
Oh, go ahead.
what you could do is you could just take the precons out of the back of the book, print one of each of them off.
Mhm.
That's 7 characters. Hand them out to your party. Let them pick which one they want to play, and run the first adventure to let them try the game. Because then you don't even have to spend time with character creation with them up front. They can actually try it immediately, as long as you've read the core rules to just understand what's supposed to happen when.
Yeah.
And then after you play that adventure, if you guys want to build your own characters, go for it.
Yeah. And then you've got some experience to help you make your decisions, right?
Exactly.
Have you thought about or been asked about solo play with Horde Wars?
I've thought about it some, but I think really what you would do if you
Sorry,
were gonna...
Arn says I had 9 pre-gens ready for the group, but he wanted to be a tavern wench.
Well, you know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I just had to.
No, that's fine. I would say that I wouldn't encourage solo play because of the nature of role-playing games. I don't mean you can't do it. You can, and actually, we have a lot of randomization, as many in the Bro SR encourage. Actually, there's a lot of tables to use, and that will facilitate that kind of play if you want to. But this is, at its bottom, a social, tactical game.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
And so even if you only had one friend to play with, that would be better. Even if you had one person running and one person with a character, or 2 characters probably, or if you alternated running and were otherwise playing it as though it were solo play, I think you would have a far more enjoyable experience because of kind of the nature of these games. Also, you may notice how we did not include information to make monsters or beasts easier to fight. We did include information to make them harder to fight.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. We wanted to help establish a common language. So if you've played Horde Wars and someone else has, and you go, yeah, our party fought Dargoth Kingsbane, who's an advanced, which is a particular dragon.
Okay.
That means something. Like at a minimum, you have some information to go, oh, yeah, you didn't all die. You know, his name tells you he has killed more than one king.
Yeah, Kingsbane. Yeah. So Winston, you have been lighting Twitter up with these minis that you're printing and painting and showing off. You got T-Rexes, you got ogres, you got blue orcs. Would you say that Horde Wars is more of a mini game, or is it best used theater of the mind, or does it depend on preference? Like,
it's very flexible. You know, the first 2 sessions I played with DM Blackwall, and it was theater of the mind, and it was incredibly smooth and completely understandable too. Like, and it's wild because there's 3 of us players, and then more like a dozen and a half zombies, and we're playing theater of the mind, and we're negotiating the play space. And still having, like just there's a lot of pressure there, and you can feel it because you can see where all these creatures are, and they are swarming, and you just see it all, and you're just like, it works very well. Now I like to paint minis, and I print them, so I like to show them off, and so I force that upon my players. They have to deal with that. But I would not be opposed to being, running an online game and just doing a theater of the mind, because I've played it and it works, and it can work very well. So that said, whatever your style is for DMing this game, it will work for it.
Okay.
You can,
because I know there's some game, like, supposedly, and I've never played Pathfinder, but supposedly, like, that one works better with minis and with the grid, because there's certain powers and abilities that affect that more than that. They would be wasted to choose those options if you were only going to play Theater of the Mind.
It's different tactical. I've played some Pathfinder 2, and of course some like 5e and stuff, and that is, I would say it's more like it's more like your sort of tactical video game. Like you're playing like XCOM or something.
Yeah. Like
where exactly you place your character, and then your action, very important. The Horde Wars is like playing Diablo. Your position matters. You don't want to go in too deep. And if you're playing with other people, you want to coordinate and draw and aggro, and you still have those level of tactics, because they can overwhelm you and kill you. But it's very much send it. Like, just go in and start chopping left and right, because that's what you're going to be doing, or throwing a spell in and stuff. And it changes so much. So you're as long as you're keeping count how many there are and who they're near, you're pretty good with that. So it works well with either. But regardless, the battlefield's going to be changing a whole lot. Like, I had a dozen goblins on the play mat because they were fighting goblins. I painted all these goblins.
Wow.
And they're fighting more than a dozen goblins, and
I've only got 6 goblin minis. I'd have to be like putting Skittles down or something.
Yeah. But we're taking them off every turn.
Oh, okay.
Every turn they're going off, so it moves fast. So it's not as, that being said, there's not as much pressure on like that sort of tactical, where it's like my exact positioning matters a lot. It's, am I being overwhelmed? Am I being flanked? Am I in position? Is it within this amount? And the range increments are easy to understand, and they're like in yards, so you can just easily just throw that out. Just, you've got a dozen zombies and they're about 30 yards out. What do you do? So
Oh, that's
anything to
hilarious.
add to that, Blackwall?
Do you see Arnie's comment there, Arn Man?
This one?
Yeah.
Feed those many some human figures, you'll have more at the end. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that we've made a really good game. We've done a ton of play testing, and
Sounds like
it shows. It shows.
and when we demoed it at Grand Con in Grand Rapids this year, we had overflow tables, which is great, of people who wanted to try it out.
Yeah.
Which was really different than a year or two before when we did Grand Con to just have some play testing with random people. Now, a few of those people showed up, and some of them brought friends when we actually had the game out, and that was really cool.
That's awesome.
One of those guys is going to be running a game over in where was it? Zealand or something? In a week or two.
I remember seeing that in the Gilded.
Yeah, and then another guy who we got the chance to play with invited us to like a mini convention of him and his friends, where it's like 20 guys meeting in a basement for 3 days with like 2 or 3 gaming tables. And we're like, yeah, awesome.
Dude, it does my heart good to hear about that kind of stuff. I actually invited a bunch of people from my church and from work to come to my house on Saturday and play Diplomacy, because I'm reading about how it was in the 70s and 80s, where we had these wargaming clubs where people were meeting face to face. And our culture is so atomized right now with, it used to even be with video games. Like if you wanted to play Halo, you got 3 people together.
LAN
You're
party.
on the same screen, the same couch. You could have 4 people per Xbox, right?
Oh, we did LAN parties.
Yeah, the LAN parties. I know I'm sounding like the most ancient wizened geezer right now, but that's something that we've lost, where people are getting together on the regular to play these kind of games and stuff. So I'm really happy to hear about that, and that they can come together over this kind of stuff.
And now that I know you're so close, I mean, if you want to make the drive, I would love to have you come over and play with either some Horde Wars, or if you want to play test this in the superhero game.
I'm thinking I could save myself some shipping on one of those soft covers if we
You should get on the Gilded server and then play with us on the 27th when we're gonna do some wizard hunting.
Okay.
Oh, he's right. They're doing a sequel to what would have been a one-shot, because they decided to betray their patron, because they turned out he wasn't doing stuff they liked.
Oh.
And so the sequel game is simply called Kill the Wizard.
Kill the Wizard. I love it.
And so they want to double their party size. It was a 3-man game. They want to have 6 players for this, because they're trying to go fight an Archmage with the ability to reverse time.
Oh.
And they know it.
That's
so they want to grab as many first level willing cannon fodder as they can to bring along.
Level 1s are free, right?
It's been fun every time I've played. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be this. Like I said, just even the premise of the last game we played is, invading a dwarven city that's been taken over by a dragon.
Yeah.
Where we were very tempted to, we were like half a mile away from the dragon's horde, and we held off.
Do you think this game is like, where would you put it on the scale of like easy or complex to learn for people that have never played role-playing games?
Easy.
Right?
Easy, I'd say.
So like you would say this might even be a good introduction for people that haven't.
So 5e is supposed to be easy to learn, and I'd say it's easy to learn, but like the retention I don't think is there typically with 5e, at least in my experience. I've
tried to teach kids 5e, and like it takes a while to get into the character stuff.
There's
so many options right up front.
Yeah, this is very. It's easy to learn. It's easy to understand, and once you start playing, because like it's you don't accumulate tons of new things to do. Your character's pretty much your character from the get-go. It's just up to you to play your character well to come on up, up top on these encounters and stuff.
Arnman says, I helped a young lady at Big Geek Con in Horde Wars. It was her first game. It took about 45 minutes, and she was off and running. So, would you concur with that, Blackwall?
Oh, yeah. I got a lady who had never played RPGs before. Her husband had, but she'd never played, and she actually came to a convention with him, tried out our game, and now is taking part in the play testing for the superhero game.
Right on.
So she's only played for that was September, 5 months.
Okay, cool. And now she's helping design. That's amazing. Winston, I feel like I stepped on something you were about to say. I wanted to give you a chance to get it out.
I mean, I've got other players. I've got a guy coming Saturday who hasn't played since he was in college, so well over a decade ago. And he's, I imagine he'll just fit right in. It's I've been playing for so long, it's a little hard for me to gauge looking at it, but it was easy for me to read. I threw it out to people, just hey, read through this, learn it, make a character, because that's how I learned. The day before I played, I read through the character rules, which is it goes up to page 62, and there's a bunch of tables in there, but that's everything that a player would need. And then go back through and make your character, and there's a list of steps on how to make your character, and it's very intuitive. And I had stop and think about some things, but it's very well written, where it's when you have a question, you can go to the material, and then the answer is often just right there. And then having the PDF, you can just Control F, just I think I know where this is.
Yeah,
and it's just easy to answer your own questions. And then if you pick it up, you have access to the Gilded, and there's someone on there who has played or run and can answer your questions, and that's fantastic.
Right on. So I'm going to drop another Gene Wolfe quote on you, because he's my favorite author. But he was once asked about the books that he wrote, and he said that easy writing makes for hard reading. And the more work that he spends on the writing, the easier it is to read. And it sounds like that's kind of the approach, Blackwall, you guys have taken with we want to play test it. We want to get it right so that it's, you're not leaving cognitive load on the table.
Right. And that's also why we hired a professional editor. She's not normally a game editor. She normally edits materials for different charity organizations.
Okay.
Right. But she's been a paid editor for a decade or more of her life. So I know her. And so I reached out, was hey, would you be willing to do this project? And yeah. So awesome. By the way, editors are not cheap, but they are worth it.
They are worth it. Yeah. Yeah. I think as there's probably been more than a few people who've thought to save money on that, and then wish they could go back and not have what they put out be the first thing that they got known for, right?
Oh, thanks, Arnie.
Yeah,
he's absolutely right too. Yeah,
there are no wasted words in the rules. Well, that's high praise. Well, guys, I'm sorry, I've done it again. Usually, I try to keep these to an hour. I kept you an hour past what you were probably expecting. So, thank you for being generous with your time. Is there anything? Are there any points that you wanted to make? Anything that we forgot to cover while we were talking about all our stuff?
Todd didn't get to share his story, and I know he's got one about a T-Rex and a Kraken.
Oh, I thought the 30 Goblins was his story.
No, the 30 Goblins was it for me, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting to that. But no, I've got a bunch of those, because you got to remember, I have run several 9-month campaigns in playtesting. Right.
Oh, okay.
Then we deliberately truncated them down to about 9 months so that we could then do more rules updates and try out new rule sets and stuff. But I've got a ton of stuff. Nate does.
Did you have any stories of something that was just absolutely ridiculous that happened? Nobody could believe what was happening?
Oh, I mean, kind of, yeah. So the Horned Lord, right?
Yeah.
You guys can't see the stat block because he's in advanced. He's one of those monsters that says it's inappropriate for a tier 1 party.
Right.
And that's because he is a one-man encounter.
Okay.
He starts out riding a nightmare, and he can summon Yeth Hounds once a day a tier. So if you're a tier 2 party, he can summon them twice a day.
Wow.
And they're going to stay until they're going to stay for many hours. And so he's going to have somewhere between 4 and 24 Yeth Hounds.
Great hunt.
Right. In addition to the nightmare he's riding, and whenever he drops a player character or a character, if he can kill NPCs too, he regains his Yeth with a Y.
Is that like a cocaine bear?
Whenever he drops a character, he regains his full hit points.
Oh my goodness! So
he has a maneuver
regeneration. Yeah.
Yep. He has a maneuver he can use. I think it's called like decapitate or something. And basically, if he damages you with an attack, he can use that maneuver once per round of play to have you lose hit points equal to half your max health, in addition to the damage you just took.
Okay.
Oh goodness.
So he is designed to just drop
He's
you
a
1,
heavy
2,
hitter.
3.
And if he does get a kill, then he's back to full health.
Yeah. So I had a party who, the first time we tried out the stat block, got TPK'd.
Yeah.
They went and fought him, and he just slaughtered the party.
Oh,
But they had one player who didn't make it. And so that person showed up like an hour late for the session because they got caught in traffic or had the snow problem or something like that. Anyway, they got there.
Michigan problems.
The whole rest of the party's dead. The player's like, I wish I'd have been there. I bet we could have won. And the other players are kind of nodding along because they had just died. And I was like, all right, I'll tell you what. This is a play test. I wouldn't normally do this, but sure. Try again. So they tried again with the other player. And mind you, they fought, I think, like 8 rounds before he managed to kill them all. Like they gave him a really good run for his money, but he killed them. Second time they fought him, which was that same day with that other player getting there, I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
Take your characters back.
Let's do
again.
a redo. Let's do a mulligan.
Yeah, which I would normally never do in a campaign. But for a play test, all right.
Yeah.
They killed him in like 2 rounds flat.
Nice. So
that
guy was the difference.
It was huge. like the abrupt turnaround. Now there were some differences.
Was it just
roles.
because there was one more, or was he like a really strategic player? Or
no, he. I think he was a warlord, so he had a little bit of ability to help them recover some hit points by yelling encouragingly at them.
Yeah, like an AOE heal.
Did you make him? Did you make him yell in character?
No, but got this. Some of them will do it.
Goober duper.
Yeah. No, some of them will do it. Some of the players will get into that. But he had rallying cry, which helped, and he could get a little bit of extra attacks in on the guy by calling out orders to his allies, so they could get extra attacks. But on the whole, no, he wasn't particularly impactful.
Rub some dirt on it.
I think really it was just the players weren't expecting the Horned Lord to be that lethal.
Yeah.
And so they
didn't bring their A game. They weren't taking it serious.
They weren't working together the way they should have. And the second time, everyone except the last player knew how bad it was. And they're like, okay, no, we need to buckle down and kill this guy.
They took it serious. You earned their respect.
And so far in the playtesting, that stat block, the Horned Lord, has had a TPK about 1/3 of the time.
Oh, wow.
Which is good. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Because he's like a legendary creature that you encounter like before a blood moon, or when there's about to be a major war breaking out, or a famine or a plague. Like he's a harbinger of doom. So you want him to be quite capable of killing the player characters.
Right on.
One thing, when I've talked with Todd here, the stats in the basic edition, you can use all of them. They're all, the players are able to overcome all those, no matter how ridiculous they seem. Because I was like, there's dragons in here. Have you ever had anyone like try and take them on? Yes.
Yeah, except for the Earthshaker one, that's in there deliberately, but you can't roll him on the random table. Your game master has to decide to do that to you.
As a punishment for something that you have done.
That's correct.
Gabba-da-goo.
Oh, that'll be fun though, because he's a desert themed dragon.
Oh, I see. Here we go.
Well, it's set up right so that there's basically 3 levels of difficulty of dragons, all of whom are pretty badass compared to characters of that tier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not telling you can't fight higher level dragons. Maybe you can. Maybe you've got a larger party, or you've decided to specialize as dragon hunters. But in basic, we've got 3 dragons, 3 weak dragons, which when the most of the people who are familiar with RPGs, when they read what we're telling them are weak dragons, they're like, these are the weak ones. And then 1 kind of mid-threat one. But for like level 1, 2, 3, 4 characters, those are super deadly.
Yeah.
Like that is a very difficult but possible fight.
Yeah.
Whereas if you fought like Umbara, Queen of Dragons, whose stat block is in advanced, she would definitely kill like 16 level 1 characters in the first round.
Yeah.
Like it would be over.
It's an hors d'oeuvre to her.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why that stat block, not in basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not forbidding you from doing that. We're just giving the warning to the DM going, hey,
if you do this,
probably
here's
isn't
probably
appropriate, just so you know.
Here's how it's going to shake out if you do this. Right on. Well, thank you both for coming on. Thank you, Winston, for coming back on my crazy show.
Yeah.
And thanks, Todd, for being willing to come on here and talk to us about the game. To dredge up horrible memories of controversies in days gone by. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. I hope you had a good time as well. And
thanks for having me.
And if y'all had fun, give us some encouragement. Check out the game. Go ahead and feel free to click the thumbs up button if you liked it, or if you want more Dunder Moose craziness, you can subscribe. And if you do so, thank you, and may God have mercy on your soul. And yeah, I'm really bad at like the outro stuff. So
still don't have that closing tagline, do you?
No, I feel like I need one, but I don't know why I feel like that way, because I feel like everyone would hate it if I came up with. Henry, we need you to close this out. Give us a put a button on this scene for us, if you would, Henry. I don't know if I should be asking him.
No, never. Why?
No, I'm curious. I want to see what he comes up with.
Oh no. That is a good Tom McDonald song, by the way.
That's on me. Race War, and good night.